This is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Monday, June 17th, 5:30 is posted. Do we want to call roll? Do you have a roll sheet? You had them all written down. Why don't you just call roll until we get to the next item?
Okay. Nico Tiarina.
Present.
Jeannie.
Here.
Jack.
Present.
Kathy, present. Rick Pitzel.
Here.
Matt Wigington. Tessie Buckler.
Present.
Mike Wu.
Here.
Steve Cady.
Here.
Okay. So we have a quorum. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the April 15th meeting. So have that in your packet. Everybody is in approval. I need a motion to approve. So, do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Mike Wu approved.
Second.
Second by Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, the next is the election of a zoning board of appeals secretary. So we have Nicholas Terzina has kind of volunteered. Does anybody else want to be the secretary? Basically take minutes, turn them in to the secretary. Okay, so somebody want to make a motion to elect Nicholas as our secretary?
I'll make a motion to elect Nicholas Tiarina as our secretary.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So now we have a site plan review application submitted by the KDB Group, LLC, and Kim Blickenstaff seeking approval of a site plan for construction of proposed improvements to a commercial building located at 1327 East Kelly Avenue, Peoria Heights, Illinois, 61616. The property, which is currently zoned B2 General Retail Business District, and that is the old public library site, so people refer to it as that often, I think. So, do you want to step up and kind of tell us what you got? I think we have a site plan, and I think we just received something like at 3 o'clock about water detention or something, but I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at it yet, so.
Okay. So I think there was just some questions about parking and what we have proposed for that. Right now on the site, we have roughly 29 spots, which were originally what the library had. We have not done any outside additions to the building, so it's still the same use facility. But what I have done is I have bought on the east and west side the 2 homes on either lot, and I demoed them earlier this year. So in our Phase 2 project, we will be expanding the lots to create more parking spot, but that's actually in our Phase 2 project. And on the east side, there's still one house that needs to be purchased, and that's Miracos, I think is her name. We're diligently trying to find her a home, and then once that's completed, then we'll start a Phase 2 project. And honestly, it probably won't happen this year. It'll probably happen next year, so. And then the other subject, I think, was lighting. We are still going to keep the pre-existing lighting, but we are adding more lighting to the building to flood on the parking spots. And also, we will have additional lighting that will go from east to west, from the steps to the ADA ramp to the west side. So that'll be additional lighting with the lighting that's already present on that property. And sewer, yes, we did probably give you an update. We did put a new sewer line in. That sewer line was crumbling away, so I did have that improvement approved probably about 3 months ago, and it was completed about a month and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I think I'd sent you a note, I think, asking about the, what your capacity was going to be?
Correct.
Or you knew what that capacity was? Do you know what that capacity is?
Between 250 to 300, 300 would be the top. That'd be like standing only, everybody just, no chairs or tables in there.
Has the fire department come in to take a look at what they would recommend or what they allow?
They did,
Okay.
early this year they did.
Okay, so they've already come in and,
They have 300s, yeah, and then we did do a little bit of demoing. We changed some bathroom configurations around, added more, actually added more bathrooms for our patrons, so it is a little bit bigger than it was before. And then we also, we did upgrade. We put sprinkler system in the building also, which it did not have that before. And I also do have a verbal and also text agreement with Kevin Shields as far as using his spot in the back for any overflow that we might have in the meantime before we do our Phase 2 project too.
And you'll wait to do phase 2 until you find that woman a home?
Yeah, because financially it
Right.
would be tough. And I'd have to make Farnsworth and redesign it again, and so it just adds more cost.
Okay, cool.
okay. One of the things with the lighting that just to understand, I guess, the
Sure.
plan is just with the neighbors. I know there's not very many homes left on the street, obviously, with what you've acquired, but in terms
Correct.
of the neighbors behind you, how much of that we'd have to worry about. So I know right now it's pretty minimal.
If you drive by there, you'll see the old Richard Doyle round bulbs,
Right, right.
globes that are there. We're still utilizing those, and so those put off a low ambient light. They're not real bright by any means. And then we'll have those same type of globe going from east to west on the sidewalk. And then we'll have two on the building itself shining onto the parking lot, but not facing towards the alley.
Okay, I'm sorry. So on the sidewalk, you're actually going to illuminate, like,
Our sidewalk, not the
Okay.
not the Peoria Heights sidewalk.
okay,
And no, we are keeping those lights there.
okay. And can you explain Phase 2 at all, just in terms of, I mean, I know I've seen the plans.
Sure.
In terms of, trying to go back to the original plans. However, it sounded like some of that has changed. So I'm just curious what it is right now. When you guys were so gracious to have Chuck Marone come into town, one of his comments on that street was it's kind of a desolate street. You've got a wall on one side and parking lot, and then on the other side, it's now going to be almost parking lot. So I think in terms of trying to make it, give you some connectivity to the village itself, and obviously there might be people that would be parking there and might filter down.
Correct.
So I think that's important, at least from a site plan perspective.
Yeah, the front of the building, which will have the nano wall, that will be able to open up, cascade open, so we'll have like free-flowing patrons from inside to outside, and then we'll have a courtyard right in front where it's grass right now, so it can be outdoor seating there.
So are you expecting, though, all of the land that you've acquired, so the two that are west and then the one that would be east, and then I think you said there was one on Columbus, that would all be additional parking?
Correct.
Okay, and then is there any plans around that, just in terms of
Oh,
trying
as
to
far as
incorporate that?
aesthetically looking?
Aesthetically, yeah, trying to incorporate it
Paul?
into the neighborhood.
He can answer that. He's our architect.
Okay.
I'm not.
Right now, the Phase 2 plan includes really the front yard immediately in front of the building. You've seen in some of the presentations, it was a reinterpretation of the 1960s rendering of this landscape building. And then it was really parking, kind of flanking that landscape development. We can certainly incorporate vegetation. We have some masonry screen walls to kind of emulate the originals that are incorporated into that landscape design as well. So it would all be new, so it would be definitely an attractive space. I think I would argue that the new parking lot will look nicer than the existing parking lot and the vacant parcels today. So it'll be a nice spruce up all the way from the 4,500 parking lot all the way down to the end of the block.
So do you have plans to add green space or greenery already, or will you add that in later? Is that something already like anticipated?
In the phase two.
In phase two.
Phase two plan, it's really bordering the parking lots.
Right.
Has green space between the public sidewalk and the parking lot.
Okay, but not as far as like inside, like a tree or a little median in the parking lot?
There is the, it would be on the east parking lot, it's proposed as a U-shaped parking lot. Inside the U is a space of,
For greenery?
you know, we can have some landscaping, yeah, for drainage and for landscaping.
Okay.
So it's not just nose-to-nose parking, it's a generous space.
That's just on the east side?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. How many parking spaces are you thinking you're going to get out of those additional?
Roughly a little under 60, probably about 58
Additional or total?
total.
Because I noticed on the site plan that we have for the hotel on Prospect, the parking lot that's behind there does include a lot of, kind of islands and things like that for greenery. So
Correct.
I would be hoping that you would be doing something like that here, because it is, the land, there's very minimal landscaping behind the 4,500 building.
Correct.
I would like to see, obviously the front of your building, if you're emulating the original plans, there's, a great deal of landscaping, and it's a very beautiful original design, so if you're emulating that, but then, yeah, it would be nice to see, some trees, deciduous trees that could be mature, some other, islands and things like that, so it's just not pure parking.
No, I totally agree, no.
Okay. Will we
Kim will make
see-
it look beautiful, I guarantee it.
Will we see that before that phase 2 happens?
Yeah, we can provide, definitely.
We'll do another site plan, okay. Because I was also wondering about the facade. When you look at the elevations, the facade on the, I guess it's the west elevation, it's just basically one big wall, not broken up at all. That would be another space. It would be nice to see
Correct.
some, something that could break up that. Everything else kind of has windows and things like that, breaks it up, but that's definitely one elevation that's, lacking in any sort of break in that brick wall.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, greenery would be real nice right there.
So in this phase, you're not going to resurface or redo the parking lots?
Yes, yeah, what's pre-existing I will be doing, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be top coating that and repainting it and everything.
But not tearing them out, then just resurfacing or?
Yeah, we're just resurfacing.
So I guess then so I was looking at this thing that we just got today at 3 o'clock about the stormwater detention. So it looks like you have 3980 square feet of disturbed area. So then what is your plan when you go into phase 2? Will you confused about the stormwater from the current parking lots?
The current parking lot will still stay a current parking lot.
Okay. So then you'll figure out stormwater detention for all the other areas around that, for phase 2, the new areas?
So, when phase 2 occurs, then we'll be taking the whole property and looking at the storm drainage for the entire property. We will require it, and we're proposing to do underground storage for that.
Okay. So you will take into account the current parking lots in that?
Yes.
Because they'd have to be, right? Okay.
Yep.
So my calculations are, so at 300 would be 60 parking spots, so when they go and do phase 2, they may have enough
And-
300.
You're right, and that doesn't include the public parking that's just to the west of us that you guys own. That's not even taking that in consideration,
Right.
or on-side street parking either.
Yep.
Which, that's kind of fuzzy. Nobody knows if that can be counted or not. Do you guys know if on-street parking can be counted? in
No,
our
well,
numbers?
technically, right, so for one parking spot off-street parking spot, so that would be in this development, would how you count it. For
Okay.
every 5 seats, so that would be 300 divided by 5, which would be 60. So you would technically need 60
Okay.
for the development as a whole. In phases like this, we can grant variances for phase 1 for, X number of parking spots, and then in phase 2, then you would pick those up as your own parking spots, or if you were short then, we can decide whether to give you a variance then for, 5 short or 10 short or whatever
Meaning
you are. Right,
street
meaning
parking?
Street parking, yep.
Okay, all right.
So I think in the approval of this site plan, we'll have to do some sort of a stipulation of variance for the additional parking until phase 2 is completed, or something to that effect, some sort of language in the motion.
I think the right way to do that would be a variance application. I hate to have them come back. I don't want to make you go through unnecessary steps, but if we're saying that the square footage is such that they need more parking than they currently have, now would be the time for the variance.
Right, but I mean, we can do the variance tonight with the site
We
plan?
really can't, because it's a different procedure,
Okay.
different considerations, and we didn't advertise that as what
Okay.
was up tonight, just site plan.
Okay.
Greg, if I had realized that, I would have let you know.
Okay, that's fine.
I didn't have enough information initially to do the calculations. to
Sure.
see If you had enough parking. But it's something easy to put together to come back next month and just ask for the variance. And it should
Okay.
go pretty quick because we know the issue now. So we'll coach you
Okay.
through that.
All right. I do have a quick question for you. Let's say that I had the library, we own it, but I rent it out to somebody else who wants to do concerts. How do you guys look at that as far as, having like 300 or 400 people in that building that I'm renting out to somebody else to have a concert? I mean, how do you do the parking? How do you justify, or?
Well, it's the use of the building,
But
right?
yeah, the parking is based on the use
Okay.
that the building is put to. It doesn't matter if it's built as a library and mainly used as a library. If you shift that use over, it's got to be a permitted use under the zoning, and then the parking requirement is triggered by that specific use.
Okay.
We've got a chart of parking requirements, and
Okay.
it lists all the different uses
Okay.
for commercial property, from hotels to restaurants to offices and so forth. And every different use has a different,
Okay.
so like for restaurants, it's based on tables,
Can I get a copy of that?
You can.
Okay.
And that's in our zoning ordinance.
Sure.
It's online.
Is it online? Okay,
It's
perfect.
online, but,
Perfect. Oh,
It's
that's
in
good.
section 9, chapter 9 of Title 10.
Go ahead.
So,
Sorry.
go ahead.
A quick question on the variance. If there's a written agreement with Heritage Square for the additional parking, would that be a way to include the variance?
Yep.
That works.
You want to take my text message now? I'm just,
Yeah, you know what?
I do.
How about this? Either a variance application or written.
Okay.
agreement with-
Yeah,
with
so if the,
Kevin.
okay.
on this, I guess we could do the site plan approval with the stipulation of either a
Subject
written.
to-
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
So I just want to, because Kevin has raised concerns about people parking in his lot, so
Yes,
he's
he
willing
does.
to guarantee you
Yes.
X amount on a
I'll be more
given
glad to show you
night?
my email or my text messages to him,
Okay.
from him and me.
Because
back and
it
forth.
just, that's one of his
No,
concerns has been
that was one of the first things he came to me was.
Okay.
And they also came, I think, to the city, to the village too, and kind of voiced his concern, and then Chief Justin was gracious enough to get us two together.
Okay.
And so we talked, and now things are good.
Okay, good.
It's a love fest.
Always like to hear that. I'm still having a hard time with no landscape plan, because it's really given where you are and how much concrete and the building. So even if what you're saying is you're going to, the elevations and things that we've seen, Tessie brought up, the one wall that is facing west, which is what most people would see as they're walking down the street and is the most visible. So, and it sounds like you're not going to tear those parking lots up in the future. Those would remain. You're going to resurface them or whatever you're going to do,
correct.
top coat them, seal coat them, whatever, repair them. So in terms of that, any landscaping you would do, would you do that now? I mean, are there?
Oh, yeah,
plans to
most
do that?
definitely. I just
Okay.
did the Freedom Hall, I landscaped all that. So, yeah, I'd have no problem doing that.
Okay, so do you have plans that we can see?
Not plans, but we have what we did before. Go ahead, Paul.
So currently, we don't have landscaping incorporated into the phase one design, other than that we're redoing the stair that was kind of falling
Right.
apart at the entrance of the building, redoing some sidewalks, getting some handicap accessible grading on the sidewalks, providing a new handicap entrance into the building. In phase two, the parking lots will be replaced, so even though there's the still coat that'll be happening, those will get totally torn out and fully rebuilt. And we do, on the west side, we do have a sidewalk and landscaping space next to the building, so between the building and the parking lot, there's about 10 feet of the green space. So it's about 10 feet of green space, and then a sidewalk, and then the rest of the parking lot. So in that green space, it is planned.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so on the west side of the building, you've got the building, you've got a sidewalk that's,
So building.
How wide?
10 feet of green, of
building 10 feet of green space and then the sidewalk?
and then I think a 4-foot sidewalk, and then the parking lot. And so at that point, in phase two, we will provide you with a landscaping plan for that whole phase two. And we do,
Yeah.
to go back to some comments earlier, we do have some tree islands or peninsulas scattered throughout the parking lot. It really is designed as an attractive parking lot.
I mean, we could probably provide those for you. I mean, that's in phase two, but we can get those to you.
Well, it's phase two, but it's kind of phase one because it affects the site plan of what we're approving tonight. So that's where it gets a little complicated. So the more information is always better in terms of providing it. I don't know if anyone else has concerns over that.
No, I agree. I think, what else will be happening in phase two? Like, how much will we be needing to approve in phase two as well? Because I feel like there's a lot happening in the next phase. So like, the more that we know now, the more that we can like approve or see what all will happen. And do we know how much green space are we taking up to do all of this already? Like, how many, do we know how many trees or how much green space is already coming up in order to do this? So maybe we can do equal to, or
There's only one tree,
Do better.
there's not much. I think we
It's
can do way
mostly-
better.
No.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, I would
not
hope
much
we
at
would do a
all.
lot better.
so, yeah.
No, definitely. I think that it's great, but just knowing more and seeing what you guys have. Especially, I agree on that west side of the building. It is very planned. That'd be beautiful for a tree or some bushes or both. And
So are we able to approve this site plan with contingent to see a landscaping plan?
Yeah.
and
For phase two,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Which the landscaping would include both, though, kind of, the entire project?
When are you looking to have phase two approved then? Just
It all depends on Maricos. Julie Bielfeld is diligently trying to find her new home, so we've been working on it for a couple of months, so.
So I'm sorry, so what you're saying is you can do it contingent upon the,
A
Well,
site
we're approving the site plan as it's kind of printed here for phase one.
Okay.
When they come back to phase two, they'll have a complete landscape plan, I assume, right? That incorporates stuff around phase one and phase two, but it'll be a complete site plan at that point for the whole.
situation.
I had one other question in terms of, and this has come up just with some other development. What kind of access to the alleyway? I mean, I know right now you can get out that way, just I remember from the
Yeah,
library. But will you be utilizing the alleys as well? And is there anything that, in terms of when you have that many cars there that are coming in and out?
Yeah, we've opened up the alley. I mean, the tenant or the owner before us had put a pretty decent-sized bump stop through there to keep people from going through there, so that will be taken out for sure, to create the flow.
Okay, so you mean a bump stop so they couldn't get into the parking?
Yeah, he didn't want anybody in his parking lot.
Put a black top
Okay.
Yeah.
curb almost.
Okay. I don't know if there's any neighbors here that,
Yeah, look at that.
okay.
So is there any other questions for Greg? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any Anybody in the audience that wants to comment on this request, this site plan request? Okay.
Did you want me to talk briefly about the atrium at all? I can just give you a real highlight.
Yeah, why don't we finish this one up and then
Okay.
we'll bring you back.
All right,
Thanks. It's just cleaner that way. Okay, so we'll go through the finding of facts for the special use site plan for the atrium. Back to my... And this is for 13 something Kelly. And the address. 1319 Kelly. Okay, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use or site plan.
Well, there's a button.
Oh,
Oh, you're right, that's
1327?
You're right, that was phase 2. Sorry.
Thank you. The establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use or site plan will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comforts, or general welfare. Yes, no, not applicable. I got to read this again. Will not be detrimental, so yes. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody in agreement? The special use site plan will not be injurious to the uses and enjoyment of the other property in the immediate vicinity for purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property tax values within the neighborhood which is to be located. Yes?
Yes.
The establishment of the special use or site plan will not impede the normal and orderly development, improvement, or surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. So not impede.
Yes.
Yes. All these are double negatives. Adequate facilities, access roads, drainage, and/or necessary facilities have been or will be provided.
Yes.
So according to this site plan, we're taking this as this, and we'll put the stipulation on the actual motion, so yes. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress to designed as minimize traffic congestion into the public streets. Yes?
Yes.
If public use or use providing public utility service, that such a service shall meet demonstrable public need and public benefit, that's an NA. And then the special use site plan shall, in all other respects, conform to the applicable regulations of the districts which is located, except as such regulations may be in each instance be modified pursuant to the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So again, we'll cover that in the motion. So yes. Okay, so then need a motion to approve or the special use site plan phase 1 for the Betty Jane Brimmer, get these names right, Event Center. What is the correct name? The Betty Jane Brimmer Center for Performing Arts, is that? Okay. So motion to approve the request for special use site plan with the condition of either they come back for a variance on parking or we get a letter, a written agreement from
Kevin Shields.
Heritage Square, for the additional parking. So
31 spaces, I think is what it is.
Yep, I believe so, just a sec. 50 minus 20, 22.
No, he's
Oh, wait, I'm saying 60,
yeah,
60 minus 28 is
I thought he had 29.
29, sorry. 60 minus 29 is
31.
31. You're better at math than me. So this is variance or written agreement with spaces until phase 2. So,
What
That's
about
the motion.
weren't we going to have something also subject to the approval of landscape?
For a second.
oh, yeah.
So approval of landscape for phase 1 and phase 2. And I think also parking, basically parking, screening, islands. I don't know if you want to just say,
Well, is that just included in the landscape plan?
okay, sure.
We need
To
to
address
be a little
parking, too.
careful so that we have a clear record of what's required today versus what's going to be required in the future, so that we know
So I think the conditions are, I think
The-
this
the
is pretty
parking
clear.
is
So the
easy,
conditions of
variance or
parking or
agreement.
variance or written agreement,
Okay.
and the landscaping plan will be developed for both phases in phase 2 and presented at that.
Perfect, okay.
At that site plan.
now I get it. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, and I'll just let you read that off again then.
Betty Jane.
Approve the site plan for the Betty Jane Brimmer Center for Performing Arts with the condition of variance or written agreement with Heritage Square for 31 parking spaces and the approval of the landscape for phase 1 and phase 2 in the next phase.
Second.
Okay. So we had motion by Kathy, second by Janie. So can you call the roll, Nicholas? Maybe you have them written down.
Okay.
Since we have new members
Okay.
tonight, so we have 3 new members, so everybody's kind of not knowing everybody's name
Okay.
yet, so.
Nico?
Yes.
Janie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Kathy? Yes. Rick?
Yes.
Tessie?
Yes?
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay. We have
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So it passes.
Unanimously.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 0, 0. All right. Number 1. Number 2. Okay, a site plan review application submitted by KDB Group LLC seeking approval of a site plan for construction of proposed commercial building at 4615 North Prospect, Peoria Heights, Illinois, which property is currently zoned B1, famously known as the new atrium building. So Greg, now you can come up and talk about that one. Thanks, sorry.
Well, I was really hoping to present, but we're working with different hotels, Marriotts, the Hyatts, Hiltons of the world, and also lifestyle and boutique hotels. And some of them are actually mandating to us that they want more room counts, higher room counts, some as high as 125 plus, which really doesn't fit our model and what we want to do for Peoria Heights as far as putting a high-rise hotel system. So we are still vetting some other companies as far as being partners with us. We're looking at Hyatt. Hyatt seems to be pretty agreeable to all of our terms, but they will not manage it because of the room count. So we're actually looking for a third-party company that will come in and manage the build or manage the hotel for us. So in saying that, they also kind of not dictate, but they want to have a word as far as how the rooms look, how the layout, if the room count meets their needs. So I'm still vetting all that out right now. That's why I can't really come to you and tell you this is what's going to be in stone until I get a company on board and we have an agreement with them, and then I can come back to you what the rooms will look like, the layout. But we will have plenty of parking. So we will be using the PAPs too, most likely.
Yeah, so just note when you come back with that information, I had sent you that list of, how big are the restaurant spaces versus any other store spaces versus just lobby space.
Correct.
The number of rooms, and then we go in, because that all fits into the parking, because if you look at that grid online, right, they have parking for what a hotel would be, but then they have parking for retail space. So if you have retail space and stores and restaurants in there that other people are going to be attending, then you got to kind of
Right.
factor those in. So that's why I was asking all those questions of you earlier, so.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be vague,
Yeah, no,
there's just too many things
I
moving.
understand.
Okay.
And that's fine, so we can just table this one until you're ready, and then
Okay.
come back and we'll take it up and discuss it.
Okay.
And if you want to, once you get more information, if you want to sit down with a couple of us and talk through what you have, so to make sure that all the questions, all the particulars might be answered before we get back to this, then that'd be fine too.
Okay. And I also asked Sarah here at the village to put out an email to all the zoning members to come out and visit our facilities. That still holds true. So any of the facilities, both the Gray Boy Loft, the Betty Jane, whatever, we're open book. So
Great.
love to have you.
I was on vacation last week, or I would have been over to the Betty Jane.
Greg, just one comment. So the hotel is actually part of our overlay district, which is just new last year. So I don't know, as you're looking at the zoning, most of the zoning that you'd think of is under Section 10. It's actually under Section 11. So I just want to make sure you take that into account as you're looking at it. And then, Mark, that was the one thing I'd mentioned to Rick, is to make sure we probably need a reference of some sort so people are aware of that, because I'm not sure
Yeah,
that...
I don't like the way they codified it.
Yeah.
I'll talk to the guy at Sterling that we
Okay.
deal with about that, because it does lend,
Because you go down and read through B1 and then...
it's
And anything
confusing
like that, yeah.
any way you slice it, but
Right.
with that added layer, it does, I will talk to Sterling about
Okay.
that.
Because even if you put it up and had B1 district, overlay district or something, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Yes.
As you're looking at it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
and then when you come back, we would have elevations and a landscape plan as well, I assume, in total. We'd have not just this site plan, we'd have elevations to look at as well, and landscape.
For the atrium?
Yeah.
Landscaping, Paul, are we close to even landscaping on the atrium at this point?
Probably not.
I didn't think we were. I just
Well,
don't.
until you have everything figured
Yeah.
out, yeah. But just when next time you...
Yeah, when you come
Yep.
back for the site plan review, think of landscaping, lighting, so.
Okay.
those things.
Just curious, do you have any projected how many rooms? And you talked about it a couple times. You're going to bring it back all tomorrow, but all next time.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Right now, between probably 52 to 48, and I think that count will actually probably even go down as
Okay.
far as room counts.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, Marriott was like one in 125.
Yeah, that's curious.
So, no, we want nice, clean.
Is there any hotel reference that you maybe are basing your model off of that we could Google and look at, this is going to be similar to this, or is this just whole new ballgame?
It's a whole new ballgame,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I actually might be able to get a contact for you. When they were doing the hotel downtown, one of the council people for Peoria had actually had a contact with someone that does boutique hotels around the country, so I can see
Okay.
if she can come up with the name of this person. But they were all boutique hotels. They weren't affiliated with a national entity or a chain of any sort. But
No, that'd be great.
Julie actually knows the person and would be a great resource to make that contact. So
Okay.
that might be helpful for you.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks, Greg. Okay, next we have variance and site plan review application by Larry Herman on behalf of Steve and Christine Schmidtgall, seeking approval to construct improvements to the commercial building and extend portions of the building in 2 feet into the existing public sidewalk for property located at 4616 North Prospect Road, Illinois, Peoria Heights. The property which is currently zoned B1, Central Business District, hence we also fall under the overlay district. So, Larry?
Move this. Thank you. Just to give you a little bit of a brief history of this building, when it was designed, as you all know, in the 70s, maybe a lot of you haven't seen it or you don't remember, but it used to be that Peoria Heights, all the way down each side, had little wood-shaped roofs and posts and columns out into the right-of-way. The existing building that is there now burned down in 1981 or 82, I believe. And to show my age, I actually built the building that's there now in 1984. So,
Built that when you were 5 years old, that's amazing.
Pardon? So, yeah, so at the time, we hired Landis and Benson, which is a very well-known architectural group in the area. And native to design was that porch element that's out in the front of the building now, the pictures that I gave you. And we did that in keeping with all of the porches that were all up and down there. So it was designed with purpose, intention. It was native to design. If that was not allowed, I mean, obviously, you can see the back of the building. That's how the front of the building would have looked. And obviously, nobody would want that as a frontscape to that building. So as we approached finding a new tenant, that is going to pay the return of what the corner is worth there because of the new hotel, which, let's get going. But the tenant wanted a very contemporary design to feel, to go with their model of what they have. And as we looked at that, we were kind of stuck with this 50, 45, 48-foot wide building, which is totally out of character with the heights. I mean, I'm sure you've all been to the Magic Kingdom. It's third scale. Everything's more upright than it is wide. And that's what gives you the ambience of the heights, is the narrowness of the building and the height of them. So rather than having this big, broad thing on the corner with the hip roof and nothing there in the front, but just a storefront entrance, we thought, well, let's go to a vertical approach and bring back some of the ambience of the heights, but in a more contemporary way. And as the APACE, the architectural firm, and I went through the disciplines of how to attempt to do the front of this building, it seemed most logical to create some center mass to draw your attention to that. And to do that, a projection out seemed the most feasible way structurally, because you can't really cut into the roof because it's all a hip set truss roof and it's all connected with each other. It's designed as it is. So to do that, this is the proposed, which the owners, the architects, and everybody has approved to go forward with. And so we're asking for a 2-foot variance out to the front. Originally, we thought 3, and I thought, no, let's just not do that. Let's not be any wider than what somebody would have a flower pot out in the front. So the existing columns and the porch would come down. That's out 9 feet. We've got 15 feet to the curb, so there's ample space there. So we just didn't feel as if the projection was going to be of any kind of an obstacle or any, what we get in return with the look compared to the projection, we thought it was a very worthy thing to do. Plus, we could decide to leave the actual porch and the post there, which is a major obstruction, because these new tenants are going to want some front sidewalk cafe to continue that on. And so we're here tonight just asking if we would remove the present facade. Is this something that we could put back in its place? So I'm open with any questions.
Larry, one of the things, and I'm not sure, you might not have been aware of the overlay district in terms of, but one of the things we have is the amount of glass frontage, and corner buildings require, well, not just corner buildings, all buildings, we want 75% of the front to be glass, just because it creates more of an interface with kind of the sidewalk activity, if you will. On the side, it looks like you have it, but is there a possibility to add any more glass on the front of?
Well, we're already adding 40 to 50% more glass than what's there now.
Than what it is?
Yes.
Okay, because I was trying to figure
Very much so, and it's going all the way down to the floor.
It's 50 feet
And-
wide.
That one, it gives the before and after. So
This one here.
the one on top is the before, so it shows your triangle, like,
Right.
right? And then
So the whole front is solid glass now, and there's no masonry interruptions in between the glass of what's currently, or there's a wood siding there but now, so you've got the majority of your whole front is glass. And then we took it to where there's actually masonry brick that wraps around the corners, and we didn't want to disturb the existing masonry there, and to cut new windows in the existing masonry structure.
I guess I'm not really in favor of setting a precedent of us extending things beyond into the public property, because where that's been done, like on Cyber Lane on the side where Perfect Pair is, there's been extension to allow some doors into some apartments upstairs. I think also like TNT's where it's come out towards the street. I don't think either of those have really looked good, and I don't think either of those should have been allowed. Also, I guess I'm disagreeing with, I like the idea of taking down the extension, the overhang, and I'm all for going vertical. I understand what you're saying about making a more vertical space. This particular design, though, I mean, I guess in my personal opinion, I feel is very off-brand for Zion. I mean, if I look at this, the first thing I saw when I looked at this was Bed Bath & Beyond. I mean, I feel like I'm walking into it feels like a very suburban strip mall, and I don't want to offend anyone by saying that, but I feel like just a front facade without extending into the public right-of-way, there should be a way to do a design that would, achieve your goals with still going vertical, still making it more modern. I mean, I think the wood screen is interesting. I kind of feel like that element, though, that you're actually doing and coming forward with feels very, like, to me, off-brand for Zion, in my opinion.
Well, I would, excuse me, I would say that since that building has been built, it has always been an underperforming piece of real estate. And because all of the businesses have been hidden underneath the front facade.
Yeah, I completely agree.
There's so many people that I talk to about this building, it's like, we don't even know that it's there. So one of the goals that we have is to, if it's going to be a retail space, is to bring a nice, bold image to the front that's memorable to people so they can, and it's part of their look, it's part of their design. As far as it not agreeing with Zion, this is Zion's design,
Yeah, I
and this
wonder-
is what they want, so.
I wonder if, because I think they're trying to, at least my perception is that they're trying to rebrand for the second front, so it wants to be completely different, or maybe a completely different feel for them, like Zion 1 and Zion 2 is something else, so I wonder if that was their whole goal, to do something different. I'm totally okay with the overhang going away, because I agree that it does hide a lot of things, but yeah, what would be next for, like, outdoor seating? Do you know how much they're wanting, or what that would look like, or?
It would be a continuation of what is there.
Okay.
It would, what's
not
happening at the public house.
Just at the
and the
front,
bistro,
they-
just at the front, right, across the front.
Is there no way to bring the entrance in order to create the depth to go into the entrance? There's actually a lot of the storefronts and the heights, that's traditionally how it was done, to provide that depth, instead of coming
And
out,
those
they're going in.
those buildings were natively designed for that.
Right. I know, I
They-
understand
and
that. I'm just
it was an
curious from a
intention.
design
So
perspective.
when this building was built, it was intentionally to project out. So what's left is something that's very difficult to do with. And
But the
if
original.
we were to pull that back, then that wood screen would be coming around and wrapping down inside, and their front entrance would look recessed and not nearly as identifiable as what you see this here.
Larry, what if you, I mean, if I'm thinking about that building, and I have been in that building.
Yeah.
So you walk up to it, and you've got doors that you come in, and then you step in, and there's like a little foyer almost.
Yeah, and that'll still be there.
Okay,
It's
so-
just that's a weather protection of the wind
Right,
blowing in
right.
for your customers.
So what I'm wondering is, to get to, is there a possibility that you could actually utilize that, and you know how you have the, I don't know the exact architectural name for it, but like the old storefronts that you have at the Nook or Fired Up, where it is recessed, utilize that somehow to open it up and be part of it, and it steps back, and maybe then this becomes more flush,
With-
doesn't
well, with the
invade the public area?
Because of the non-native design of that, the structural elements to accomplish that are well beyond what the tenant wants to pay
Okay.
to renovate and to occupy his space. So that's clearly some of the hardship.
Okay.
But in terms of the design and everything, I mean, it is feasible to just put a flat front on that building. It essentially is a flat front when you take the portico up, or that.
You're going to have a hip roof design,
Right.
which is not in character with anything that's within the
But you
street.
could add a false, just like you have here, you could add that false front, but just on the same line as the existing building without coming forward.
Well, let me just explain too, yes. There's an overhang on the roof that's 2 feet. And that's all the way around the building. So what we're asking is that front projection to come out no farther than what the existing overhang is. So that's all in plane. To bring that back, we lose all of the depth of the mass of the front entry as far as what they're looking for. The architect's here that designed it. Mark, I don't know if you have any comments? Nope, he left. I'm sorry. Okay, he left.
We all looked at you like, you this.
Yeah, he left just in time. Yeah.
So the 2 feet, so it looks like the wood that wraps around, that projects out then to cover part of the previous overhang? Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
It's
Okay.
going to be connected to the existing overhang,
Okay.
which is 2 feet,
Okay.
which is 2 feet out. And we're actually going to be cutting back the front overhang to 1 foot to accommodate the 2-foot extension here.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I had a hipped roof on my old house, and we actually cut it back up at least a foot, just for, it was for different reasons, but, I mean, it is possible to cut back, I assume, a hipped
We
roof.
will be cutting it back a foot so that it marries seamlessly into the 2-foot projection that's there. It just doesn't, you can't see that on the elevation, but on the front, the overhang will be 1 foot, and on the sides, it'll be 2 foot. So we're doing to that discipline so that we don't have to go out another foot farther to accommodate the existing overhang.
So what is, do you know what the front is, total?
You mean the width of it, or the?
Yeah.
The front,
It's a 50-foot wide.
40,
The building's, or I'm sorry, the lot's 50 feet wide,
it's 46,
right?
7 feet wide. I don't have that exactly.
Yeah, it is that.
Oh, okay, so it is. So on GIS, it shows it's basically 49 feet. The lot width, and obviously it's built to a 0 depth, or 0 setback. So it looks like,
So the front glass area is about 20-some feet, I would just roughly off of this plan here.
20.
These numbers are so small, I can't.
So the 2-foot projection is just a wood lightweight framing. It's not solid masonry or heavy construction. So it is basically more or less a false frame arrangement. And gives you the protection of the front entrance, weather protection as well, and the depth.
So I was trying to look at the width of those windows. Is that 8 feet 5 inches or 6
Well,
feet 5
the whole front of the glass is, so that'd be 7 and 7 be 14, approximately 20 feet, 20-foot RO, approximately 20 feet of glass, including the doors.
This looks like it says Is that, so those 6'5", 6'5"?
And, yeah, and right above that, it says 20 foot of rough opening.
Oh, okay.
And then you got the 5-foot extensions, and then you've got the brick veneer that's going on each side that wraps around the corner. And that's why we went to the darker color, to bring more emphasis to the front entrance.
So it's about 50%.
That's what I thought.
I apologize, I did not check for what your new layover is as far as glass in the front.
Okay. And part of it is just trying to, some of the areas are very closed off, and so we're trying to get it open and obviously a corner, but it, on the side, it looks like you've got plenty of glass on that side.
Yeah.
The
it's
front seemed a little
approximately all
lacking.
glass. But structurally, with a building that is existing, it's very, very difficult to put glass around the corner, because that's the sheer of the building
Oh, no, I'm
architecturally,
not saying around the corner.
engineering.
We're just saying the two
Right.
sides. So you don't wrap it, you,
Instead of having the columns,
Right.
you could extend the windows farther.
Well, the engineer that we have, the structural engineer, he's using that as the building shear, and that's what keeps it from doing this, because you have the existing plywood and the masonry that's there. So if we were to,
are you, I'm not saying,
No, he's talking
Things
about the
that
corner is the
Yeah.
shear. So
Yeah.
the architectural engineer is saying that corner needs to be the corner, so it doesn't.
this corner.
Talking about the corner.
yeah, this
Oh, right. We're not, what I'm saying is this side and the front. So we're just saying the
But he's
side
saying
of
you
the
couldn't
building.
cut into that brown
No, I'm not saying that.
side and put glass, is what he's
Where
saying.
the new
Here.
columns are.
Yeah.
the extension.
Or on
Yeah.
the other side.
I
So
think what Tessie was saying is
The extension.
There.
extend this
That
and
could
put
be
it in
glass.
here, is what she was saying.
that
That's
you'd
what
have
she
to
said.
ask, I don't know.
Does that presents a variance situation though, too, correct?
Well, to put
For the
glass
glass?
in there, we would have to then extend the existing building out to the street. to have glass there. Unless we have really deep windowsills or something on the inside.
But Mark, wouldn't this be the same thing we're running into? We'd have to grant a variance for the glass.
Yes, I mean, as I sit here, I don't remember how we took that measurement. 75% of the facade.
Let me look at the front.
I honestly didn't look at this from a facade perspective under the,
I didn't either until today.
Constructed with transparent glazed surfaces on not less than 75% of the first-story facade surface. Buildings located on a corner lot shall have
So-
transparent glazed surfaces on not less
Yeah.
than 75% of the first-story facade, surface facing each street. And the primary point of ingress will be the Prospect Road.
So ideally then, if we don't change the structure at all and take the porch roof off, we're leaving the existing glass
right.
Right.
and still go up with the facade.
We're
Yeah.
talking more procedure than substance
Right.
right here.
No, I understand.
Should we process this as a site plan review?
Well, it's not, right now, it's a variance request for
That's right.
the building on the public property, the public right-of-way. It's not a site plan review, so
That's right.
just mechanically,
Yeah, I think that does need to be processed as a, variance from the overlay requirements, which we can treat a variance application as, I think that's something I think we could grant tonight.
Because it is a variance in the
Because
first
it is a
place.
variance application, we're just
Changing the
Expanding
description a
it.
little bit.
what the nature of the variance he's asking for. ultimately, there does have to be the site plan approval when the building.
But this, I think this was advertised as site plan and variance.
As both.
Yep.
I didn't bring the,
Well, that's what it
then we
says.
can, yeah, then we can, Kathy, I think we can do that.
Does it?
Okay.
So, any other questions, Larry?
I got a question for Mark. I mean, we have had issues before where things are being built, are going onto public property, and that has kind of come back to be an issue later if you want to change something or...
Right.
So how is that addressed then? If the village wanted to
Addressed here.
change streetscape, is it,
It's addressed here, and
okay.
Like right now? So like
Yeah.
after we say yes, there's like nothing?
correct.
I just think
I mean, once you say,
Yeah.
that's an issue. Someone else is going to come to us and say, someone else is allowed to be built on public property.
so how far out is the awning, that's the new awning going to?
The new awning is 2 feet.
So, but it's out further than the 2 feet for the facade, right?
Yes,
I
correct.
mean, like,
So it'd be a total of 4 feet from the
Building,
building.
from the wall building. The way I look at this, right, is that those facade columns are almost like columns for the overhang. I mean, it's no different to me than
Like
the fact
walking
that
through the
you got-
overhang versus
the
just
fact
walking
you got a
through
big
that.
overhang out there
Yeah.
with poles, 4 poles sticking out there.
I think the same.
You know, so.
I think this definitely opens that corner up.
I agree. I think getting rid of the awning is a good thing. I just think that.
It also
the
would be
precedent
different if you
is
didn't
my
already
concern.
have a masonry structure at that same, front line. They're taking the recessed part and bringing it even, correct, with existing masonry?
Yes, with the existing overhang.
So Tessie,
Not
just for
masonry.
clarity,
Oh, so
what
it
would
is coming,
you,
okay.
Yeah, it's not the masonry, it's the
It is
roof.
coming out.
yeah, what would you like to see instead of this? What would be different
Well, I
about
just,
it?
I just don't think we should be allowing people to build on public property.
Okay.
That's the main thing. I mean,
Like on
there's a
that.
million different design options you could come up with. And I mean, obviously, there's overhangs. I don't have a problem with overhangs. We have awnings, and we have other things. But I just think that it's just something that is going to become an issue later on. I also think that the 75%, frontage, glass frontage is something that we just took great pains to pass. And I think that that's something we should adhere to.
Yeah, agreed.
Going forward as well.
But he couldn't even get to 75%, so.
Well, he could if he had windows
That wouldn't even get
here.
you to 75%. Those are only 2 feet. He needs like 8 more feet of glass or 10 more
can't-
feet of glass
I
to get to
can't do that.
75% of 49 feet.
But you're adding, I guess we have to take into account, they're adding all that glass on the side, which is open to public, which people see if they're coming like from.
That's a separate, that we also have the same requirement on the side street as well.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he'd have to be at 36 feet, so he'd have to have 16 extra feet of glass from what he has today to get to 75% on that building. I don't think you could take it that far to the corners of that building. So either way, you're going to give him a variance for glass.
No, we'd have to go through with a whole steel substructure to support the building.
But you haven't looked in, I mean, that wasn't a consideration.
Well, at that
today.
point, we would just leave the
Right.
porch the way it is because the cost would just be way over the value of, so we're increasing the glass and the glassable portions that we have to utilize based upon the engineering feedback of the building that we have. But when does that kick in? If you change one window, you got to go to 75%, or this is, I'll keep this in mind for the future work.
It's all up and down Prospect is only where it applies, so it's buildings in front on Prospect. And then the B zone, like 1 or 2 addresses off of Prospect on the side streets. But it's triggered anytime you come and ask for a variance or approval of a site plan.
Okay. So we could leave the existing wall space the way that it is, take the porch off.
Larry, is there a way just to, I mean, if you're trying to really create kind of a big visual interest to, because it does kind of wrap around and narrow it down there when you come around those corners, and part of it may be the way you're looking at this, but can you expand that front area that you have, where it's more flat, but it's across?
Well, I guess my question is, with the nature of the style of the hot buildings that are there now, this building is so much wider than all of the other buildings.
Right.
Do you want that much glass on the front of the building? I mean, I wouldn't.
Well, no. I'm trying to say, I'm trying to kind of get around the being on the public property, so I've switched gears a little bit on you. All I'm saying is, you're right, it's a wider piece of property. Most of the other ones are 25 feet, except for a couple of, like Sullivan's and Joe's. I think are probably the only ones that aren't 25 feet. So if you were to, because I like the way you're making it taller, because it does look kind of like a squattier building, I guess, when you're looking at it. And obviously, that's what Public House has done, is they've got kind of a false front out there, when Sully redid that years ago. If you were to, is there a way you don't have to go on public property, but you could expand that facade then wider, the front part? I don't know if it's brick or whatever material that is, the white section, to go from side to side? And does that give you the same effect without having to be on public property? I realize we still have the glass issue, but, and I don't know if that would make it worse, or if that would make the appearance.
Well, it's very difficult architecturally to have a definition of materials when they're all flush and monolithic. So that's why a lot of these buildings, you see, they went in.
Right.
And they've been natively designed to indent and so forth.
Right.
To create the ambience of an entryway and so forth, which is just not feasible here.
Well, I was trying to figure out if the awning itself would help achieve kind of that, or...
Well, if you went wider, you would also lose that brown,
The depth or?
the brown
Right.
top.
But I think it might make it...
I think it would look
Yeah.
all white. So, real quick, any other questions for Larry? We can come back to him in a minute. I just want to check, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this particular variance or site plan review request? Okay. So,
Thank you.
Rick, do you need to do 2 variances then? Vote on 2 different variances? One for the glass and
For public?
one for the public? space.
Okay, just to double check the procedure here, Mark. So as we go down through here, previously, so we can have some people say yes, some people say no,
Yes.
and then we have the motion to approve, and then we go, okay. Okay, so as we go down through these questions, we can have some people agree, some people disagree, then we do the motion as a whole with conditions if there are any. Okay, so we'll start with the public space, the 2 feet, of public space as designed with the columns that come out 2 feet, and there they are. They look as if they are. How wide are they, Larry? How wide are they?
2 feet by
5, right?
5.
2 foot out, 5 foot wide. Okay, so public space columns, 2 foot wide, 5 foot, or sorry, 5 foot wide, 2 foot out into onto the sidewalk. Will the strict application of terms of zoning related to the use, construction, or alternation of buildings or structures, or the use of land impose practical difficulties or particular hardship on the petitioner? Any yeses? I guess we can do it by raise of hand. So no yes?
I'm sorry.
And no's?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me think.
Okay. Will the strict application of the terms of the zoning code related to the use, construction or alternation of buildings or structures, or to the use of land impose practical difficulties or particular hardship upon the petitioner? So I guess this goes back to Larry's design coming out 2 feet based on how the roof line is, et cetera, and with how they want to create the facade of going in, et cetera. So does that present a particular hardship on the petitioner? Yes or no? So any yeses? I'm saying yes.
Yes.
I'll say yes.
1, 2, 3, 4,
I'm a no.
5, 6. 6 and Nicholas, are you a no?
No, yeah.
2 no's. If the variation is granted, the property affected by the variation will remain in harmony with general purpose and intent of the zoning code? Yes, no. Variation is granted, the property affected by the variation will remain in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning code. Yeses?
I say no.
I'm a yes for that one.
I'd say no
4,
for that one.
5,
Sorry. No.
6, 7?
Yes.
8. The approval of the variation will not merely serve as a convenience to the petitioner, but is necessary to alleviate some discernible hardship on the petitioner. Yeses?
I'm a no.
4,
No.
5. Can the variation requested by petitioner be granted without substantial detriment to the public good? Yeses?
Yes.
Anybody know?
I'm a no on that one.
Can the proposed variation be approved without impairing the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan as implemented by the zoning code? So again, this isn't glass, so. Yeses?
I think, yeah.
Yes, for
3,
that.
4, 5, 6, 7,
Yes.
8.
And hang on the last one.
And then if the proposed variance involves a fence, that's an NA. Okay, so a motion to approve the request for variance to allow the front facade to have columns 2 feet out onto the sidewalk, 5 foot wide. Any conditions? I don't know of any conditions at this point. So do we have a motion to approve the request for variance as stated?
Motion.
Mike?
Yes.
And seconded by Steve Cady. Okay. Any conditions? No? Okay. So, can you call the roll?
Yeah. Nicholas?
Yes.
Jeannie?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Jack?
Yes.
Kathy? I'm going to say no. Rick?
Yes?
Tessie?
No?
Mike?
Yes.
And Steve?
Yes.
6-2, it passes. Okay, now we'll go on to variance piece number 2. Glass is less than 75% on the east side of the building, facing Prospect. Will a strict application of the terms of zoning code related to the use, construction, or alternation of the building or site to the use of the land impose practical difficulties or particular hardship on the petitioners? Yes. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes.
If the variation is granted, the property affected by the variation will remain in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning code. Yeses?
Yes.
I'm gonna say yeah.
3, 4, 5,
I'm a no on that one.
7, 1. The approval of the variation will not merely serve as a convenience to the petitioner, but is necessary to alleviate some demonstrable hardship on the petitioner. Yeses?
Yes.
Yes.
Can a variation requested by a petitioner be granted without substantial detriment to the public good? Yeses?
Yes.
And can the proposed variation be approved without impairing the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan as implemented by the zoning code? Yeses? That's an A. So, motion to approve the request for variance for the front east side facing Prospect of 4616 North Prospect Road to be less than 75% glass, and it is actually going to be, what did we say?
50, I thought you said.
50.
Call? Can we go?
Yep.
Nicholas?
Yes.
Jeannie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Kathy? Yes. Rick?
Yes.
Tessie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
8-0 passes. Okay, Larry. Both of those variants passed, so should be able to.
Site plan questions?
Oh,
or-
yeah.
Oh, should we? Yeah, I guess we should, huh?
It's almost a given based on what.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Sorry, you're right. Need to do that.
Slightly different standard.
That's why you're here, Mark. Keep me in line. I always say that every meeting. Okay, this is for the site plan for 4616 Prospect. The establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use or site plan will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comforts, and general welfare. Yeses? Any noes? The special use or site plan will not be injurious to the uses and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish and repair property values within the neighborhood to which it is located. Yeses? Any noes? The establishment of the special use or site plan will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. Any noes? Adequate facility, access, roads, drainage, and/or necessary facilities have been or will be provided. I think that's an A, right?
Yeah.
We're not doing any of that. Inadequate measures have been made or will be taken to provide ingress, egress, minimize traffic, that's an NA. If public use or use providing public utility, that's an NA. And then the special use of site plan in all other respects conform to the applicable regulations in the district, which is located, except as regulations may be in instances modified pursuant to the recommendations of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Any noes? Okay. So the motion to approve the request for special use site plan is made by, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Kathy. And seconded by?
I'll second.
No conditions? So,
No conditions.
call the roll.
Nicholas?
Yes.
Jeannie?
Yeah.
Jack?
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Rick?
Yes.
Tessie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
8 yeses, no nos. This is 6, 17, 19.
Every time I say that.
Oh, good. We don't know.
Lisa's name.
Bet we have people in the audience who want to talk about the next one.
So patient.
What did I do with that first? We did it, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Sign it. Okay. So, last order of business, well, last variance request is the application by William Mickey Nazarski seeking approval of a front side yard fence on a corner lot for property located at 4515 Miller Avenue, Peoria Heights, Illinois. Property is currently zoned R1 residential. So is Mickey Donarski in the house?
I am.
You want to get up and, I think we all have received the diagrams you sent and the email explaining your request, so you can go ahead and explain it, and then we can ask questions.
Okay, so again, as I said in my email, I apologize. I was not familiar with the process clearly, and obviously I'm doing this backwards because the fence already exists, at which I understand I did wrong. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm asking for permission to put this fence in, and then if I do get said permission, then you can tell me if I need to, change the parameters of the fence or what have you, I guess is. As far as, so why I need a fence where it sits now is that I don't have a backyard, so we don't have anywhere else to put a fence, right? And I didn't understand that having a corner lot ostensibly gives me 2 front yards is my understanding, right? So while my address is on Miller, my front door is actually on Manita. And so this is my only side yard where I could put a fence, the way I looked at it. And then as far as why we need a fence, we've got a dog that we use for security as far as she's a little dog, but she makes a lot of noise. So if anybody approaches the house, she can kind of alarm us to, someone approaching the house. And just being a good dog owner, we've always owned dogs, and we've always provided a fenced yard for the dog so the dog can exercise if we can't walk the dog, or and to protect the dog. So for a while there, I had just a lead that I was using. We'd put, if we couldn't walk Hannah, we'd put her on a lead and leave her out in the yard. But there's been occasions where there's been a stray dog that's approached her. She's vulnerable because she's a small dog, right? And so, and that's also why the fence is the height that it's at, because while obviously I have a small dog now, and someday I might get a larger dog, but I'm not worried about her getting out of the fence. I'm worried about a larger dog getting into the fence, right? So that's why it's a 4-foot fence. When I built it, I thought I was putting in an attractive fence. I was surprised and no one actually approached me personally and told me they didn't like the fence, but apparently there's people that don't like the fence. So, and again, I apologize for that, but when we moved into this house, we're basically right on the edge of being empty nesters, right? So my wife has never been alone before, and so now my daughter's away to college. She's home for the summer now, but she goes away to college now. I travel for work, and so it's not easy for my wife to walk the dog all the time. But then there's also a security issue. The way I've got a porch that this fence now I think I don't know if you've got I've got pictures of everything you can see.
Everybody's probably been to the site, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that back porch, there's just a French door that opens into the house off of that back porch, which is kind of a soft entry into my home. By having the fence there, it just gives it another obstacle to get over. I've got cameras on all the corners of our house, again, because when I'm on the road and now my wife is completely alone, she's anxious, right? And so I want to have as a safe of environment for her when I'm out of town. And so thus, again, that's another reason for the fence is from a security issue. This last St. Patrick's Day, we had someone at the corner there that was bleeding from his skull, and the police had to come. He was sitting right in our front yard. And that made her very nervous. She's like, if this guy it would be very simple for him to get into our house through that porch area, right? So I wanted to make that a little more secure as well. And then I just wanted to improve the appearance of my property. I really felt like it's a good-looking fence, and then if we did get approval, I would do extra landscaping and things like. I mean, I don't want to be an eyesore to my neighbors or anything, and I, up until this point, have gotten along quite well with my neighbors. I hope they would agree that I've been very accommodating. If anybody's ever asked me for anything, and I'm always, I'm very friendly to everyone. I walk the dog every morning. I know all my neighbors. We've gotten along well up until this point. So, I mean, that's basically my story.
Questions?
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so it appears some of the fence is on the public right-of-way?
Yes, that was, and I made a lot of mistakes, clearly. That was something that I was not aware of until this became an issue. So, the way myself and my fencing contractor, who's here tonight as well, we just looked at the existing fences in the area. I think 1, 2, 3. Here we go. So, if you look at all of the other fences that already exist in the area, they're all the same distance from Miller, right? There's four fences that exist on Miller, and they're all approximately 12 foot from the curb, which is what this fence is. Because that's what we looked at. We looked at the setbacks that exist because we wanted to stay in line with the rest of the neighborhood. On the Manita side, I didn't really have anything to go off of there, and it was just originally we were going to have the gate coming off of the house, so that's why it goes out 12 foot from the house. Obviously, so basically, I believe I'm 6 foot too far on the Miller side, and I believe I'm 6 foot too far on the Manita side as far as where my property line lies. And so if we have to bring it back to the property line, I understand that, and we're more than willing to do that. But again, that's where I got those, why it sits where it sits today is because we looked at what exists in the neighborhood.
So you would be willing to move it back to the property line?
Of course, yes.
Well, actually, the zoning code for a corner lot fence is 10 feet from the property line.
Go back from the property?
From the property line.
And then 15 feet from the intersecting lines of the corner of the property line. So,
Well,
my famous hypotenuse drawing that I sent Kathy the other day, but by moving it back 10 feet from the property line, you're almost 15 feet from the joining lines of here. So if this is 10 feet, this is my...
Well, if I come 10 feet off of both of my, then now the fence sits in the middle of my house. If you remember, here's a picture of the house. So it would be, if I have to come in this way, then now the fence is sitting like between those two windows. So I would request a variance to at least let me sit it on my property lines, because 10 foot inside.
I'm just saying that's what the code is. That's all I was stating.
Okay,
Because she said you'd be willing to bring it back to the property lines. But I wanted
see.
to make sure she understood that
Gotcha.
the code actually says 10 feet from each property line. So 10 feet from the property line on Manita and 10 feet from the property line on Constantine, and then a 15-foot.
It's Miller, not Constantine.
I'm sorry, Miller. And then a 15-foot from the intersecting lines of the corner lot.
15.
And the way that math works, it's, if you move it back 10 feet, he is literally like 14 feet 6 inches from the corner. So it's kind of, when you have a triangle and you move stuff back, that hypotenuse line almost doubles. So, I mean, 1.5 times.
And the same thing applies to landscaping, so the landscape, and that's probably even more important because you don't want you've got a wrought iron fence you can see through, which is great, but in terms of, and these are great, but I mean, I have a front yard fence on Miller. It's been there since 1926. So obviously the zoning's changed. We didn't even have our 1970s zoning when it was put in.
Right.
So it's hard for, we can't look at this because every one of these, I think, was put in
I understand. I'm just trying to explain how
understand where it was coming
where
from.
I came from.
But it's even more important, some of the landscaping. I think even across the street from you, there's landscaping where the landscaping by the street has to be, within a certain distance, because you don't want anything up high.
Sure.
That's going to affect the corner.
No, understood. And
There's
if I
visual thing
can't do
within there.
landscape,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that either, obviously.
And I guess the most important thing, and for your contractor, is every municipality has a permitting process, and that permitting process allows us to address these up front.
And that's where I will make the 100%
Yeah.
claim. My business partner and I crossed wires on
Okay.
this job.
Okay.
We were doing one in Beacon, one in Metamora, one here, and one in Delavan, all in those same 2 days.
Okay.
I thought he was here getting all the information. I knew I was covering the Beacon and the Delavan information.
Okay.
And that's where actually the 15-foot offsets from the center lines of roads came from, because that's what it is in the city.
Okay.
So a lot of data from different communities all at the same time. Kind of got hodgepodge to this.
Okay.
And one person thought another was handling that part, and this was.
Okay. And so, we try to put in a process so that you're aware of it
Oh,
up front.
I understand that
and you don't
now.
go to the expense of-
Yeah, I understand that now.
Right. That's what I was trying.
There's a little tree here. It's just about 10 feet. Did you consider, like, other dog fence options such as wireless, the wired fence?
Yeah.
Those types of things?
Like I say, but that doesn't really protect my dog from other dogs. That was the other, that's why I built a fence, was to protect my dog from other dogs. And the security aspect of it, of having better security on that entry door to my porch.
And truly wireless fences aren't recommended for that small of a dog. You can only trim those down so far. They don't recommend the wireless fences for dogs under 4 pounds.
And what kind of dog is it?
It's a Yorkie. She's about 10 pounds.
I have a Yorkie and I have it turned all the way up.
You have to, because they don't listen.
I have a Yorkie.
Which is why I have a fence. Because she'll run right onto the street without it if she gets away from me.
That might hurt.
Never goes near the fence?
I guess the other option, and I had a similar situation, because we had a fully fenced-in front yard, changed our driveway, and because of that, because I moved it, even though I was putting the exact same fence back up, I had to come and get a variance.
Yes.
And when I was told it was for convenience, I had to be something other than
Right.
convenience, mine was to keep the dog in, and so I went with the electric fence, and I just pushed it back.
Right. But it's
Much deeper yard than you have.
Yeah.
So I understand that, but is there a possibility, you've got the 6 feet in the back that you have kind of like a run and then come around, wrap it, something around and then across the drive? That's kind of how ours used to be. It would go actually across our driveway. So if you went the back of, so the house on Miller's side, and you're going south to your lot line, it looks like you have 6 feet on your little drawing that you have. And then you run down the property line to the west, and then you come back up to the front of the house and cross your drive and so you basically have like a dog run, and then an area, you've got that little area to the right of your drive. It looks like you've got like a little bench or something there.
But that wouldn't address my security concerns, would it?
It doesn't address the security concerns. However, there's a lot of people that have French doors along Miller that, would, and that's where I get back to precedent setting, because I do think we've got a lot of situations where people have backyards, but the backyards empty into a ravine in the back, and so it would be easy to say, let's just put front yard fences there and let's keep our dogs in the front or whatnot. So I'm a little sensitive, even having one, to kind of setting that precedent. And I don't know setting the precedent for, if our neighborhood's that unsafe, then we need to be talking to Chief Sutton about patrolling the neighborhood more. So I'm not sure that, I guess I look at that as a convenience, and we're really supposed to be looking at something that is a true hardship and not just a convenience.
But we just passed a front yard fence for Katie's development with no hardship, essentially. We just approved for a front yard fence for that. I guess I'm saying, I think it's an attractive fence. I don't see, I have a definite issue with it being on public property.
Right.
To not be on public property.
Sure.
I guess I would seem that you do have a hardship in terms of having the dog and not having, I see that as a bigger hardship than the security issue. Pulling it back, if it was back 10 feet from the lot line and it was basically on the Monita side flush with your house.
Right.
And then pulled back, it's an additional 10 feet from where you have it right now, which is significant on the Miller Avenue side.
Right.
I don't know if that's something you'd be willing to do. It's a much smaller area, but it would conform to the code, is that correct?
Wait, you're saying that you push it back 6 feet to the, so
Basically,
you're going back the 6 feet to the,
well, it would go back,
10 feet from the property line
yes.
on both sides? Well, the front side you can, because you're to the house.
On the Miller side, it would come back
Right.
from the property line and stay flush with the Monita side of the house. Is that what we're looking at?
That's what looks like it would be approximately flush to the house on the Monita side. It's hard.
Yeah, it's, without knowing where the exact property line is on that side, I did the same calculations, and it looked like it was pretty even with the house. You would have to, measure that, but And I came up with, I mean, so that plus the area you could go out on the Miller side, you would still have something like a 10 by 30 area. So you'd have a little bit more than that, actually. I think it's 35. So you'd almost have 400 feet of fenced-in space, 400 square feet. Something close to that anyhow.
So that's, if we were to grant a variance, that's the allowable
Understood.
space that you would have.
Yeah, understood.
And just to address, I mean, I think every time you look at one of these, sometimes they're different in terms of, and we haven't got to any public comments, but on any zoning issue I've ever been in 12 years on the zoning, I've had more calls on this than any other item. So I think you do have to take into consideration what the neighbors say as well. I don't think in that situation there was anyone that had any objection to that. So, because...
For the Katie Kim, you mean?
Yes. So I think just in terms of the perception of maintaining the character of the neighborhood and some of the other things that we are supposed to be looking at as we grant variances, that's one of the things I take into
I
consideration.
mean, I think it's hard to say this doesn't maintain the character of the neighborhood, considering most of the older homes have the fences like that. I mean, to me, it certainly doesn't do any detriment to the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I think we need to take into consideration some of the comments from the other neighbors as well, because the other one did not have any objections.
So, first of all, for Mr. Donarski, do we have any other questions? Okay. So then we'll move on to public comments. And I have a letter here from...
Do I sit down now?
Yes, you can. Thank you. And then we may bring you back. From Austin Engineering, Michael Cochran, Principal Senior Project Manager, but it's signed by 12 of the neighbors, I would assume, all on Miller. So I guess the question is, we can read this into the record, or we can just submit this into the record and people can speak, or do you want me to read this and the people's names, and then that is you speaking? So I can do that either way.
I think the general consensus was, I'm Michael, I was going to come and speak on behalf of everybody.
Okay, so that's fine. I guess, so who, I just want to go down through this so I know, because we usually take down the name and address of the person speaking, but if you're speaking on behalf of a number of other people, I'll just go down this list of people on this letter, and we can kind of check them off, and if those people aren't here, or there's additional people here that you're speaking for, we can record that then. So, Kate and Dan Maloof, so somebody's here from there, right? And then Paula Dixon.
She was here.
She's here. What's that?
David Bianchi.
Bianchi?
And Eileen.
David Bianchi and Eileen Bianchi.
David and Eileen, are they here? Okay. Martin Burt? Best. Yep. And Teresa Best. Do you know that one?
Terry Best.
Celis? C-E-L-L-I-S? Is that?
No, I think it's Terry Best.
No, the one under that.
There's two under that.
Oh, which is
4505 North Miller? No? And 4432 North Miller?
That's Lori Collins and Stan Collins.
Oh, Lori Collins. Celius. 4432 North Miller?
Those are both the Collins.
The Collins, Stan and Lori Collins.
So next.
4412? And
Tommy
4442?
Backlund and
Yeah.
is it Justin McConnell? Is that-
So Justin, you're Justin? Okay. So is there anybody in the audience that did not sign this that I didn't name that he's speaking for? Okay.
Okay, as I said, I
Can
represent,
you just state your name and your address?
sorry, my name is Michael Cochran. I'm with Austin Engineering. Our address is 311 Southwest Water Street, Peoria, Illinois. I was asked to represent the several homeowners who have signed on to this letter, to compile a letter of their lists of concerns about this fence that went up without a variance, and kind of speak on their behalf as one group, rather than each of them coming up here individually and saying the same thing. We thought it was a better presentation if we all just had one set of comments to everybody. So,
Hopefully, I don't want to limit you too much, but about 5 minutes, and
yeah,
If-
it's 5 minutes.
if it goes a little over,
5
that's
minutes,
fine.
not going to go too far. I just kind of wanted to hit some of the highlights of the letter. I know it was submitted, everybody had a chance to read it. The biggest thing is all the work that has gone into Miller Avenue recently, with all these people putting significant investments into their homes and kind of revitalizing the area. They don't really feel like front yard fences conform to the character that they've been trying to set for that area. All the existing front yard fences along Miller have been in place prior to this ordinance coming into effect. So they would not like to see the precedent set of allowing a variance for this fence along Miller, because that would allow other people to approach the board and ask for the same relief from the zoning code, essentially setting a precedent for that area. Also, there were concerns about, allowing the dogs in the front yard and people walking and biking along the, Miller Avenue, and the dog barking and disrupting their peace and enjoyment of, walking along the street. Also, the fence, currently constructed, they don't feel like it would adequately keep in a smaller dog anyway, because the bars are spaced out so far. There's concerns about the dog being able to get loose and cause a nuisance for the neighbors as well. Along with that, the other concern was a safety concern, especially with that fence being brought up to the corner of that intersection, and not really having that sight distance triangle, and impeding the vision of motorists coming up to that stop sign, not wanting any pedestrians or bikers to get hit by cars who may not have had the opportunity to see them with that fence in place now. So again, like I said, you can read through the rest of the letter. I just kind of want to highlight the major concerns of everybody and bring that to the board's attention. Thank you.
thank you.
Did anyone go up and try to look at the sight lines? I did, and I thought that it was okay. Did you guys have any problems when you were looking at, when driving by it, like turning and seeing oncoming traffic or
Yeah, I
bicycling?
didn't have issues with the site. I mean, because it's a very open fence.
You can see through it, like, that's what I
obviously
felt.
there'd be an issue if it was like a picket with
Right.
pickets together.
Okay, just making sure.
Well, I wouldn't say I had trouble, but I can definitely understand why our code is written how it's written.
Yeah.
To keep the fence back from the property lines, especially on a
Definitely.
corner lot.
Yeah.
Because, a car, you probably wouldn't have trouble seeing, but a small
Bicyclist.
kid running out there, or a bicycle maybe, or
Yeah, I agree.
a dog, it might not be
But if we pull
totally
it back-
impeded, but if you pulled it back, then you would never have that problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. There's another picture.
So did you determine in this picture where it would be pushed back to then? Could you?
I think on the Manita side, it would be pretty close to being even with the front of his house.
Okay.
Now, again, we don't have he doesn't have his exact lot line, so it's hard to say exactly where that would be, but it's going to be close somewhere to the front of his house on the Manita side.
Okay.
And then going back that way, the only thing I judged it off of is there's a small tree in the neighbor's yard on that side that's, I think, his property line, or close to the
Right here?
close to 10 feet off the property line. No, it would be somewhere like right here is a tree, a small tree, or a bush or something. And I think that would be kind of 10 feet off the property line. But that side of Miller's right-of-way is much wider than I anticipated it, actually.
So I'm sorry,
because
so you're saying the property line is
It's inside that fence right now.
right here? Okay, and then you're saying 10 feet back? Is it putting
Yep.
you back along just outside of the bed then?
No, I don't think it's quite
Okay,
outside
so
of the
these are
bed.
probably 5 feet.
10 feet from the property line on the Mania side would put it even with the house, I think.
So this goes even.
The front side is
And then
a
this
little more hard to
is
determine.
6 feet off. And then 10 feet separated visually. Which changes a lot.
So if you just,
So this will go back further. This back as well. This like 10 feet, yeah. Just have them all
so one of the questions on our determination of variance talks about sections 10-4, 7D, and
Which isn't that the corner lot visibility?
well, it talks about the permit approval procedure, so just in essence to get a permit for a fence.
So I have a question for the public or the neighbors. So if he was to pull his fence back, would you still have the same concerns? Just basically the same concerns, just there's more better sight lines, but still with the dog, still with the making sure that the precedent is that it's open and that more people can't fence it. So pretty much the same thing. You still have the same concerns. You wouldn't be as satisfied if there was, if we only asked him to pull it back. Is that correct?
I would address that by saying Mickey, can the dog get out of the fence without that collar on his neck?
I don't know. I don't think so. And I'm gonna have, eventually I'll have a larger dog. This dog is,
Well, eventually is a long time from now. So I think the dog can, living across the street, I have only seen the dog in the fenced area one time. I do not know how long the fence has been there, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
we've been on vacation last week,
Okay.
and
And my point, and the only time I saw the dog in the fenced area, it had a collar, like a satellite dish.
yeah, but in case that she couldn't fit, in case she could fit through, yes, that we would always put her out with a bumper. It's a bumper collar, because I didn't want to affect the sidelines.
I got it. That seems counterproductive, that you gotta put that thing on the dog and let it out in the yard, if that's okay. Secondly, there's 1 or 2 gates on the fence. Are those locked? Are they, so you feel very secure with those gates keeping people away from your porch area?
It's just another step they would have to go through. Generally, they look for
And please, I understand safety. I think bad guys could get in all of our houses if they wanted to get in. I don't think that fence will impede anybody, to tell you the truth, but if it does, it does. Okay. And if it is meant to be a hardship instead of convenience, I don't understand why having the dog once there in a month can be anything but a convenience. That's certainly a hardship, making you walk the dog all the time. And that's great. Either you conform to the rules or you don't. And I'd like your comments, Lord, about precedents. And that's a dual threat here, is not only precedents, what about the next person? Or if Danny does it, or Paul does it, or Justin does it, you can't say, oh, he's a good guy, let him do it.
So if you look at subsection D, 2C, the permit standards on determining whether or not to issue the permit, It's the, for a front yard fence, is the approval of variances by the Board of Appeals. Is the approval by the variances of the Board of Appeals, the input and of the surrounding property owners and residents regarding the compliance with standards set forth in this section, the compatibility of the proposed fence, considering its placement, height, construction with surrounding neighborhood and its impact on the use and enjoyment of the neighborhood properties, and whether or not the proposed fence will impair the safety, welfare, light, air, substantially diminish, impair property values within the neighborhood, or impair natural drainage problems on adjacent properties. And then the proposed fence shall not alter the established character of the neighborhood, and these standards are applicable to all fence applications set forth. So, and then you go up to the front yard, and it basically just talks about the fences shall be set back a minimum of 10 feet from the property line or abutting street, not exceed 4 feet in height. So those are kind of the standards, or the first one's the standards, the second one is the what we should take into account as issuing a fence permit.
Did you see this? Okay. That's okay.
So that I'm just saying that because in question number 6 on the standards for variations, it just says set forth in subsection 7.4D, and that's what it is, the
Sections.
input, surrounding neighbors, compatibility of the proposed fence, whether or not the proposed fence will impair safety, welfare, and proposed fence shall not alter the established character of the neighborhood. So, any other questions of Mr. Donarski, or? And you have a copy. You have a copy of the letter from Austin Engineering, right? This.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that that gets in the record. So 45. So I guess the first, I think maybe we should, before we ask the questions, could we not propose what the motion may be? Because we may say a motion to put the fence on the property line, or a motion to put the fence back from the property line, and then
Or is
that
it-
could.
Discussion about the motion.
Yep.
Or is it even a motion to like take it all the way off?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd leave it up to somebody to make a motion. One of those are pretty much our 3 options, is
Yeah.
either leave it at the property line,
Pull it back.
you pull it back 10 feet and 15 feet from the intersection of the property lines, and/or deny the front yard fence request.
Or we could do a comment, like you could do, for example, require it to be flush to the house on Modita and at the property line on Miller.
Correct.
You know, because
Yep.
get too much farther if it's a weirdly thing, it's going to look worse if it's a tiny little square in the front yard.
Sir? I have a question. If
Could you state your name
Terry Best,
and your address?
4420 North Miller Avenue.
Okay.
My question is, if this would have followed proper procedure, and would we have had to sign something?
No?
This would be the proper procedure. So it would just be, his fence isn't up right now, and this would be the same discussion we're having.
So then we would be voicing our opinion in the same manner.
Exactly. Yep.
I just have to say, I'm really concerned about the fences that exist.
Could you state your name and?
I'm right next door to Mickey. And I'm really concerned because the fences that we have up now, the picket fences in our neighborhood, there are so many people that enjoy walking down our street. You see Grandview and people pour down Miller all the time. And one of the houses in particular that has a fence and they leave their dogs out there nonstop, charge the fence and bark nonstop. And sitting or being next door to this house, whether it's a small dog or a big dog, I don't want to hear a dog barking. I don't want people pulling into my driveway and having a dog bark and charge at them. I just think it's very disruptive with the peacefulness that we have on the street right now. And I'm hopeful that we don't allow another front yard fence and then for that to encourage other people to come and use.
What was your address?
I live next door to Mickey.
I'll give it to you.
That was her address.
4413.
So I'm open to a motion to be made. Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to push it back to its property line.
To the property line?
Correct.
So we have a motion to grant the front yard fence variance pushed back to the property line.
And that's allowed per that would be a variance of what's allowed per a variance of the variance, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Can we call?
The only condition I would like to put on that is that he have a proper survey done and know his property lines.
And just, I guess, making sure that if this is approved for some reason, that the visual on that, you feel comfortable where the property line would be, that would not be a visual issue?
He put a stake
Yeah, I saw the
in his
stake,
yard where he
yeah.
thinks his
Right.
property lines intersect there, but I
Yeah,
don't
it was just
know
hard
that
to see with
that's-
that.
right.
And then just for clarification, Nicholas, is this pushed back to the property line front and back, or even with the house? Because that was one of the questions, was even with the house in front and pushed
To be
back.
honest, I think
He's just saying
his property
just
line
the
in
property line.
general.
So he's not saying
I believe that, that's his right, it's his property, so he should be able to do with whatever he wants with it. I think just simply his property line.
Call. Anybody else?
What about the setback from the corner?
Like the visual, like being able to see? Like the visual, being able to see the setback, is that what you mean?
Well, if you're only going to the property line, does a setback on the corner still count then?
He's saying that you would do a variance to that. You'd basically override it.
So we're overriding the setback, the 10-foot setback from the property line. Personally, I like, if it's going to be there, I think that the setback on the Manita side should be 10 feet from the property line, and maybe the setback on Miller, a lesser amount, but
Or basically even with the house.
Manita side even with the house, yeah, and then on the Miller side, it's hard to judge without knowing where the property lines are, but I would, so you could probably get away with that, the property line. So we have a motion, and we can, vote on this as many times as we want. We have a motion for the ability to place a front yard fence and seconded at the property line. So I'll go down through.
Oh, we haven't done that yet.
Will the strict application of the terms of the zoning code related to the use of construction or alternation of buildings or structures or the use of the land impose practical difficulties or particular hardship upon the petitioner? Yes, no. Yeses?
I'll say yes.
Do you have any noes? One. If the variation is granted, the property affected by the variation will remain in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Yes.
Yeses? Any noes?
No.
No? The approval of the variation will not merely serve as a convenience to the petitioner. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to back up to that number 2 again. If the variation is granted, the property affected by the variation will remain in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning code. I too am going to say no to that.
Yeah, I agree, no.
So do we have any yeses?
Yeah.
Tessie and Nicholas, I think. I don't know what
Number 2, sorry. Okay, the approval of the variation will not merely serve as a convenience to the petitioner, but is necessary to alleviate some demonstrable hardship on the petitioner. Yes or no?
I'll say no.
No, I'll say, I guess that's a yes in general. It's different feet, but.
I'll say yes.
No.
No. Can the variation requested by petitioner be granted without substantial detriment to the public good?
I think no.
I'm gonna have to say no. I still think there's a corner issue here, so. Any yeses? Yes?
Say yes.
Yes.
Can the proposed variation be approved without impairing the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan as implemented by the zoning code?
Is that not applicable?
Not applicable. And if the fence proposed variance involves a fence with a fence conforming to the standards set forth in subsection 1047D, so those ones I read. And the yeses?
Yes.
Yes. Noes? Okay, so we're voting on a request for a front yard fence set at the property line. With the proper survey done and knowing the property lines. So, roll.
Nicholas?
Yes.
Janie?
Yes.
Jack?
No.
Kathy? No. Rick?
No.
Tessie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve? Okay. Raven?
This fails automatically because we didn't make the requisite findings. It really, you could all have unanimously voted yes, and this still fails.
Because
When we go
of
through
the-
those questions,
Only one.
if there is not a majority vote for yes on every question except for the ones that don't apply,
That's what I thought.
there's really no point in even calling the motion for a vote.
Okay.
You must make those findings as a majority of the board. Now, you can, some
Go
would say
back and
yes
forth.
to no and no to some, but a majority of you, so 5, have to say yes on each of those questions.
Okay.
Or it doesn't matter if it's a yes or no vote. So in other words, it failed. The only thing that I would think that's really pending before the board is there any condition that you would say yes to all of those questions on this fence? In any location or subject to any condition, and if the answer to that is no, then it's,
Yeah. I don't think that there
If
is.
it's flush with the house on Moneta, does that take away the health, or the safety issue, health, or the detriment to the public good. It doesn't even matter if we have more than,
How many did you have that it was different, that you had a majority that were nay, and just address those?
3.
Okay, which ones were they? There were 3?
2, 4, and 6.
2, 6, okay. So do you want to just go through those again with that other option? See what you're...
So you're proposing a condition where the fence is even with the house on the Manita side, but at the property line on the Miller side?
I don't know if that would alleviate some of the concerns of others on the board. I don't know that it would alleviate all of those. It seems to
Can I have those pictures?
pertain to 4 more.
Oh. Can we get those pictures back? Yeah, thanks.
I'm not sure there is one that we all say are all agreed upon, any option.
Well, sometimes you gotta go to...
I think the tough one is 6. How do you get around 6 with the criteria? Because it still wouldn't...
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Because 6 is the one that conforms to the code, and if you had the majority, it doesn't change the conformance to the code.
4 stuff too.
I'm just saying that one's pretty obvious.
Yes.
Okay, see that?
It's 12 feet back on one side and it's 6 foot back on the other side.
Oh, here they are. So I took all these too. So here's your corner picture.
Definitely be better.
Okay, here it is. So from here, this is 12. That's, I think it's 12 feet. It's probably like 6 feet back, so it's between 10 feet back. But,
It's hard to tell there, but if that was back.
How wide are the panels between the, figures? So that's a 6 foot.
6 foot post.
Okay, so it was on the property line, be basically, and come right back to right here.
There's probably a post here and then
Yeah.
6 foot.
So there's 6 foot, but on the corner, is there a 4 foot and
Yeah, there's a short section and
a real short section, like, right?
there's I think a 3 foot and a 2 foot section that come to that corner point of the tree.
So this goes back from the property line.
And the gates are only 4 foot wide.
There's a gate on Miller and
Where's it? You looking at that aerial?
Yes. Sorry. Making it
And this said basically remove a 6-foot panel to go back from Miller.
just basically both those. Like, doesn't it come down to 6 kind of with?
It's that tree.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that would be kind of his property line.
So that would be kind of where the fence would look. So, I don't know, do you want to make that?
I'll make another motion. Okay, I'll make a motion to have the fence be on the property line along the Miller Avenue and up to the, even with the house on the Munita property, or on Munita.
So property line on Miller, house on Manita.
So property line Miller is 18 feet back from the street? Is that what it is? Okay. And we need to go through these again?
Well, I'm going to go through the three.
Okay.
Like all of them, or can we go through
the ones.
I think you should go through
All
all
of
of
them.
them. So that we have a recorded finding on this motion.
I need a
Okay.
second, need a second.
Yeah. I'm looking to see if I have another sheet. I do. You can only do this 4 more times. I'm just kidding.
I would just ask if there's any.
No, that's the only sheets I have, so we can only do this 4 more times. Okay, so we have a motion, a condition of fence to the house or the porch? And it's, I say house.
I was thinking house.
Okay.
I hadn't considered the porch.
Fence to the house on Manita side. And property line on Miller. Okay.
Probably
Is
couldn't
it-
find that porch on there, just the word
Yep.
there.
Is this pending a survey as well?
Yes.
Because you still would need to find the property line on Miller.
To make sure.
Okay. So, will the strict application of the terms of the zoning code related to the use, construction, or alteration of buildings, structures, or use of the land impose practical difficulties or particular hardship upon the petitioner? Any changes in that? We had 7 to 1. If the variation is granted, the property affected by the variation remain in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning code. Any no's?
No?
You can say no.
No? Four? So, we're done. Yep.
So the last option would be, right, to make a motion to have no fence at all?
We don't need to do that.
No.
We
don't need to do that.
Okay.
Or if you moved it back further, but you're not going to get
You
past.
can't get back further.
So the variance is not granted, did not pass. So,
How long do I have to take the fence down?
The code doesn't provide that. I mean, it's just your fence is in violation of the code, so they would expect that you would remedy that in a reasonable amount of time. So, they'll monitor it, and if you haven't taken any steps in a reasonable period of time, they'll send you a note and remind you. It doesn't have to be taken down tomorrow, but, do plan on getting it done. Okay.
okay, thank you. Then, other business. We have a few things coming up in July, so we'll have July meeting. Anybody can't be here in July, I believe the date is 15th? July 15th? Yep, July 15th.
Anybody not able to attend? that
July
they know?
15th, let me look.
Everybody's looking at their calendar.
I'll be here.
Okay, very good. You had the last thing on your note today.
Let me pull it up real quick.
Oh, so,
Well, actually, are you talking about the medical, or the marijuana?
yeah.
Okay. So Illinois has passed recreational marijuana, and so we have a ordinance around medical marijuana and where you could, so it can't be located close to schools, you don't want it on your main business district. And so we were just bringing up, traditionally, the administration would bring before us a proposed ordinance, and Mark is already on it. He's
Yeah, we're
reviewing
working on that.
800 pages of the ordinance.
No.
So he would make a recommendation to us, and then, but since we already have an ordinance, I think we were ahead of Peoria even on that. So since we already have one, it would probably be a modification of that in terms of
To
where you would
recreational.
restrict it somehow. And I'm sure there's restrictions
I am
there.
confident that the zoning provisions are not different
Okay.
in this new law. The
Okay.
distances from schools and
Right.
all those, our ability to regulate location is
Yeah.
going to be the same. So it'll be a real simple modification. We're just,
To our
instead
existing
of
one.
medical marijuana,
Right.
it's going to be medical and recreational.
Right.
So, but we need to make sure that that's the case, so.
And then once we do decide, will we like tell it to the public? Like this is what
It would be
Oh, yeah,
an
it would
ordinance
be-
that we
it would be
vote
a
on.
public-
Okay.
So you'd
Yeah.
actually send out, well, we don't send out notices for those, we just vote on it, right?
We don't, but we publish the notice
The
of
notice
the
in the
meeting,
paper,
that that's
yeah.
an agenda item.
Just so people
and then
know, yeah.
That would be an ordinance amendment, so it would come before the ZBA and the village board.
Okay.
What is the current zoning right now for medical? Just out of curiosity.
It's
Like, away from
just
schools?
very restrictive, yeah, in
Really?
terms of, there's a lot of things like liquor licenses. You can't have a liquor license within so many feet of a school. With the marijuana, the distance is very large. So if there are, and you don't realize how many daycare centers and, there's all kinds of, anybody that has a home daycare license, is, and it's
considered.
like 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet. So it can't effectively close a town completely off from
What they're doing.
permitting, so
What they're doing together.
it may be a little less restrictive with the recreational, but like I say, I'm going to confirm all of that.
Okay.
And has there been a change in this proposal? So, the other thing is, Rick and I talked about is a Samuel update, and you could probably help us with that in terms
Sure.
of the board met, and I don't think anything's been published, the minutes or anything yet, in terms of redoing a development agreement and any changes in what's happening there that we need to be aware of in terms of,
With the development agreement, the only change was the extension of the deadline for her to
Okay.
pull the building permit. She's already complied with that, so that's kind of run its course. The village has an engineering contract, I think, on the agenda tomorrow night for the village engineer to do the engineering for all of the infrastructure, curb gutter, storm sewer, all of that, that's part of that redevelopment agreement. So what I can tell you, it's moving forward.
okay. So nothing's changed in terms of the number of houses, and there's been no forward momentum in
No.
terms of,
Other than the recent inquiry about dividing the lot at 1324. I
Okay.
think that was the address, which will create a need for both a variance and, when they pull the permit, to build site plan
So I spoke a
review.
little bit to Dustin today about that. And I
Yes.
said- I told him, I sent a note, I think I copied you, right? That
You did.
You need to know what lots they're splitting and how, what they're going to build on those lots.
Right.
Because each one of those cases makes that
I can tell you
lot
that
size a different
it's
number.
1324, which is 2.5 original lots. So
Right.
30, 30, and 15, so it's a 75-foot wide
Right.
lot. And they were wanting to split it back to a 30-foot lot and a 45-foot lot. Well, neither of those meets the minimum lot requirement, even
Because it would have to
for,
be 48.
even for R1. R1 minimum is 6,000 square feet. So it really doesn't matter what they're going to build on it, it would require
That's
a
why I said
minimum lot
40
size variance.
48 by 125 would be 6,000, so.
Correct, so the 45 is even too small.
Right.
Obviously, the 30 is.
Yeah, but the code says, in both
Actually, the average on the
R2
streets
and in
is
R1, in R2, if you're building a single-family home, and in R1, if you're building a single-family home, it has to be on a 6,000-foot lot. So they, even though the lots are all laid out on
Right.
30s, they made it basically a 6 by 100, because a lot of them, they wanted you to build on 2 lots instead of 1 lot.
Hence the 48, just more than 45.
That's why I said I did the math, and I'm like, oh, they.
Somebody was clever.
Well, I tried to see if you could take the whole and split it into 2 lots.
Nope.
But you can't even do that because it's not 48.
No. That would be more of a, see, our subdivision rules are quirky. We incorporated the county ordinance, but we don't have anywhere near the staff that the county has several different layers, including a committee, and we can't do that. But if all you're doing is reverting back to the original planning, that's not really a subdivision. That's more. So, and that was what I told you, P.H. Samuel, attorney. I said, look, if all you want to do is go back to the original platting, you can just record the plat. We'll sign the plat, but before you do that, you need to know you're going to have to get a variance before you can build anything. So you might want to, before you go to the effort and expense of preparing and recording a plat, you might want to apply for the variance first.
Okay.
And then the only other thing was just with the, and I see Sarah here, with outdoor dining and the street seats, we just had talked about, do we want to, there's really no criteria around street seats in terms of, we built into the overlay district some things around the dining within the overlay district, and obviously the street seats are part of that. And the street seats are somewhat part of that, but we really haven't put into that. So
There really is nothing on the street seats, so to the extent that's something that you want to regulate in some fashion, it's a blank slate.
Yeah, I actually think it's in the overlay district. It talks about dining towards the street or something. I'll have to...
Into the street.
Into the street. And it sounds like it's the street seats, so I'm assuming that you were
But it
thinking about
doesn't really.
that. But it doesn't define them.
Doesn't define it, so.
So just...
I'm sure that's what I was thinking when I was doing that drafting, but I'll go.
That's what when I read it, that's what I thought. But that's just something to think about. And then the other thing is just in terms of, some people have had concerns with the maintaining or the enforcement of the walkways and things up and down
Now that is.
the area. That is in there. So that's more of really, I guess, an issue with Dustin in terms of managing that. Okay.
So I think if people complain about that there's not a wide enough walkway.
They need to call.
They need to call Dustin, and the code officer or whatever needs to, make sure it fits the zoning ordinance of a 4-foot walkway or whatever we had in there. I can't remember what it was.
It's 4 feet is what it was. We talked about 6, and then I think we went back. So anyway, if we wanted to do something more on street seats, right now it's pretty open in terms of any future ones that are coming, because I think they talked about some future ones, but then depending on what...
So I guess if we were going to propose something, I guess people should maybe think about what they would want to try and put a code around or standards around.
We should maybe make that just an agenda item for discussion next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So think about, so
Look at the ones that are there, what appeals to you, what, even safety.
So if you can come up with anything that...
And does that include when they take a parking lot and use
Yes.
that? That will include that.
Restaurants are...
The people pay for, the restaurants pay for the cost of the
Parking lot.
thing, and then the village stores are over the winter.
Okay, so they paid, what did you, no, what did they pay? Just curious. People have asked me that.
I can't.
They walk by them every day.
They're shipping.
Right, yeah, no, I assumed it wasn't something
But
crazy. I was just
it's
curious.
not much. I want to say $1,000. That's not cut off.
That's it on my list. Anybody else have anything?
Right. Well, and I'm wondering too, with parking being such an issue with people, I mean, do we ever have a limit to how many can be there at one time? I mean, if everybody
And that may be
requests one-
something we want to talk about.
The thought was,
Yeah.
roll it out.
Be what?
You don't respond to a medical emergency.
In a way.
Oh, especially if they're side by side. So that's an interesting thing. That's probably something we should discuss.
We already
Yeah.
did that last year.
But have they, there's nothing in what they, there's nothing to say, it can be every other spot, or there has to be so many feet in between, or?
It was
Okay.
really.
I mean, that's an interesting point. I didn't think about it.
Never put anything permanent in place.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's good that you bring it up.
Yeah.
We should think about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, but that's a
There
really
should
good
be
point.
some
Yeah.
minimum distance between each one.
Yeah. And
We've already crossed that.
Easy gas vote, you count them down.
so,
And we talked about the same else, so I think that covers it for me.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we are adjourned.
thank you.
Thank you.